1 in 3 women, 1 in 2 trans folks in the US will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime. And the #1 obstacle to safety for survivors is financial security. People cannot afford safety.
Economic abuse is a type of abuse that occurs in the financial ecosystem, and quite often it happens with other types of abuse associated with it.
For some it meant that they fled with absolutely nothing, just the clothes on their back. But at the same time, some then discovered that they'd been coerced into debt. So that means the perpetrator had either taken loans or credit cards out in their name and it wasn't safe for them to say no, or they'd been forced into doing so, perhaps through physical violence.
The way that we address this issue in the US is almost like it's a humanitarian crisis. We think of gender-based violence as beginning at a moment of acute crisis and ending shortly after, when in actuality there are a million moments before that moment of acute crisis where support is needed and doesn't exist. What Free From is doing is transforming our society's approach to the issue to build an entire ecosystem of support for survivors so that they have the means to thrive, and addressing the issue as a systemic economic problem with economic causes that need to be addressed and economic consequences that need to be addressed.
So some of the solutions that we have influenced at Surviving Economic Abuse are working with financial services, because many abusers control financial products or policies or processes as part of that abuse. And we have worked really closely with the Financial Conduct Authority, which is the regulator in the financial services space, and the charity has also worked really closely with UK Finance, which is a membership organisation for banks and building societies in the UK. And through that influencing work has been created something called the Financial Abuse Code, and that sets out how banks and building societies should respond to victims and survivors of domestic abuse.
In certain parts of the world, like the UK, economic abuse is now a punishable offence. It's a criminal offence, and there is a clear boundary around what is and isn't acceptable socially, culturally, economically, even in family environments. And I think that discipline is also required in other parts of the world to make sure that people don't fall victim to some of the seriously damaging things that this type of abuse can leave.
If we're successful in changing narratives around this issue, then we won't have ended patriarchy and we won't have ended misogyny, but survivors will be existing in a completely different context. And so an individual's propensity to harm will not be able to withstand the structures and systems of care that we have put in place to protect survivors.